We will be live in just a few moments. To everyone watching the replay, thank you. If you're watching on Facebook, please make sure to press play on the video so we can see your comments. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Sri's Sunday New York Times Read-Along. Our guest this morning is Deb Amlen, columnist for New York Times Games. My name is Neil Parekh. I'm the executive producer of the show, and I'll be the guest host today. Sri's Sunday New York Times Read-Along is produced by Digimentors in partnership with Scroll and Scroll Global, one of India's most important independent websites. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our Digimentors website. We're also live on Scroll's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And this week, we're live on Deb Amlen's Facebook page. So thank you for everyone who is joining us today, particularly the folks watching on Scroll and Deb's page. We have a great show today. Deb, we've been wanting to do a crossword-focused show for a long time, and we have the perfect guest. Deb will share everything she's learned helping people do the crossword over a number of years. She's written almost 5,000 columns for New York Times Games. And as a bonus, at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:30 IST in India, we have a PDF of the New York Times Crossword, today's New York Times Crossword, on our website for you to download. And at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we'll solve some of it together. It's going to be great, and Deb is going to give us some pointers. Sri's Sunday New York Times Read-Along is produced by Digimentors, the social, digital, AI, and events consultancy that Sri founded several years ago. We'd also like to thank Muckrack, our longtime sponsor of the show, for all of their support for Sri's projects and the New York Times Read-Along. A few announcements for upcoming shows. On Wednesday, we're producing and I'm moderating The Year in Hip Hop, focusing on Spin Magazine and the history of hip hop for the Graphic History Company. Walter Grayson, Tim Fielder, and Charlie Moss, the associate editor of Spin, will be on the show. That's Wednesday, December 18 at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. On Thursday, I'll be co-hosting and producing Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health with Dawn Helmrich Newberg. Our guest is going to be someone familiar to our New York Times Read-Along family, Shauna Presley Vircher. We'll be focusing on finding happiness and healing after trauma. And then next week, our last show for the New York Times Read-Along 2024, Mike Connors will be our guest. He runs the New York Times printing plant at College Point in Queens. And that's going to be incredible. We're going to focus on some of the special sections and how he produces the big inserts in the Times. So you won't want to miss that. And then just so you know, we're going to be taking 2 weeks off, December 29 and January 5th for the holidays. But please make sure you join us next week. Mike Connors is going to be a great guest. What a great show we have planned for today. Deb Amlen from New York Times Games talking about the New York Times Crossword. I have been wanting to do a crossword show for a number of years. As we mentioned, at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:30 p.m. IST, Indian Standard Time, we'll be solving some of the crossword together. So we hope you can stay for that portion of the show. Let's go ahead and welcome some of the folks who are watching today. Jayanti Patel is saying good morning from India. Good morning for us here. Of course, good evening where he is. And Ron Thomas is checking in from Dubai. Good morning, everyone. Ron, of course, is a former guest on the show, and I had the pleasure of meeting him in Dubai when I was there last month. Thank you, as always, Ron, for your support of the show and for always checking in, regardless of where you are in the world. Patricia Freudenberg is watching from New York. Thank you, Patricia. Paula Kiger, longtime producer of the show, is watching from Tallahassee, Florida. Paula, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Jenti is giving us a weather report. It's cool in Goodrop and Sunday evening, as I mentioned. Thank you, Jenti. And that Patricia offers a quick hello to Deb Amlen, who is our guest. Pradnya is watching from Silver Spring, Maryland, not far from where I am in Washington, D.C. I'm in Springfield, Virginia, actually, the DMV, as it were. More international folks, Aubrey Madhava, a recent guest on our show, is watching from Ireland. He downloaded the crossword from our website and is just saying what fun it is to get pointers from someone who is actually in the know. This is what Deb has done for years, is give pointers to people to help them work through the puzzle and give them tips and tricks to get more people involved in solving puzzles. So this is going to be a great conversation. And Fisher is coated in frozen rain and offers a good morning. It's 7:30 a.m. Central Time for him in Iowa. Thank you, Ken. Naomi Service is watching from their new place in Rhode Island. Naomi moved to Rhode Island. Wow. We have friends in Rhode Island. We work very closely with Lori White at the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce. We did some work for the University of Rhode Island. And a very close friend of mine from college, Tess Rondo, lives in Providence. If you need any contacts up there, Naomi, please let us know. I'm sure the Upper West Side, I think that's where you were. This is you. Mohammed Sadiq is watching from Karachi. Thank you, Mohammed. And Sujana loves New York Times games, so this is going to be great. Saying my sound is going in and out. So if other folks are having a problem, let me know in the comments. I'll see if I can troubleshoot that. Otherwise, I'll keep going, and I'll also count on Deb to let me know how that's going. John Lee is watching on YouTube, checking in from New York City, looking forward to our guest easing his New York Times crossword anxiety. We'll see if Deb often has to play therapist for folks who do the games as well. Stephen Kaplan says good morning to the Read-Along family. And Naomi says she definitely needs contact, so we will definitely see what we can do to help. So without further ado, we want to bring on our guest, Deb Amlen. You can follow New York Times Games on Twitter and Instagram, but Deb is on Instagram as xworddeb, and we'll put that on screen in just a moment. But let's go ahead and bring Deb on. Deb, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Neil. It's great to be here, and good morning or good evening to everyone who's watching. I really hope we can ease puzzle anxiety, because once that's done, I think you'll have a lot of fun with the puzzles.
I'm sure we will. And thank you so much for everyone who is watching, and really appreciate you taking the time to join us. But not just that, I want to tell you how much it means to us that you were able to share the PDF of today's website. Today's crossword. It allows us to put it on our website and send it out. Yesterday evening, we sent it out just after 6 p.m. Eastern time. What an incredible boon to our readers and viewers. It just such a close relationship we have with the Times. We do this with the New York Times for Kids edition once a month. That's another print-only special, but we will put that on our website and share that with folks, and people download it. And our friends in the design desk, Wayne Camadoy, Tom Jolly, are always helping us with sharing special sections and putting it on, put it on our website. So thank you for that. Means a lot. I'm hoping
It's my
that
pleasure.
my audio might be a little bit better. Lean in a little bit. How's that? Is that better or still choppy? Audio?
Right,
Good?
right now it's okay, but it is going in and out occasionally.
Okay. Good to know. I'll see what I can do about that.
Okay.
Um, so Deb, let's start off. Give us a little bit of background in terms of your work at the Times with the New York Times Games. You've been there for a number of years. A
Yeah.
little bit about kind of the bigger picture of your work there.
Well, I was very lucky to be offered this job. I came on board in January of 2011, so I'm coming up on my. See, I'm a word person. I'm not a math person. I believe my 13th or 14th year, um, and I am a humor writer by trade. I was also a puzzle maker. I'd had puzzles published in the Times and the Washington Post and a lot of other venues. Um, there was a blog called Wordplay, which is the crossword thingy of the New York Times, and um, the men who were writing it left. So Will Shortz, who is the editor of the New York Times Crossword, uh, knew that I was a writer and said, "Would you like to take this over?" And I said, "Sure," because it was a steady job. And as most writers know, a steady job is worth its weight in gold. So I came on board and I very quickly learned that the majority of people seem to be. Have a lot of anxiety around the crossword or any crossword, not just the New York Times one. Um, the thing I heard the most when I would speak to people was, "Oh, I can't do the New York Times crossword. It's too hard." And that seemed like a real shame to me because when you get down to it, a crossword seems like a really intellectual pursuit. But when you're solving, a lot of them are hilarious. There's a lot of humor in crosswords, a lot of terrific wordplay, which, if you're a word nerd like I am, is just like a finding treasure. So I decided that, I mean, there are other crossword blogs like Rex Parker and Amy Ronaldo's Diary of a Crossword Fiend. Um, and they approach it differently than I do. They approach it almost like they're reviewing a movie. Here's what I liked, here's what I didn't like. Um, I thought that what one segment that was not being filled was helping people understand that they can do the puzzle. So I decided that I was going to change the whole reason for being for wordplay and talk to beginning solvers and help them learn that if you can learn a couple of rules about crossword puzzle solving, your skills will go way up and you're going to find it a lot easier to solve.
Which is really great because that also is an extension of something that we talk about, and I'm going to keep checking audio until I get an all clear. But it's an extension almost of the service journalism that the New York Times does uh, in a lot of ways, particularly on page 3 in the paper. It's one thing to provide some entertainment, and in terms of the history of the puzzle, this is something that dates back to World War II, in terms of doing
Yeah.
this, putting in the Sunday puzzle and making a regular thing. Started off as entertainment, but people are taking it seriously now, and it's become a cottage industry of sorts, right?
Uh, I'm sorry, I missed the question.
It's become a cottage industry of sorts in terms of that
Oh, yeah.
so much has been built up around the crossword and the Times' role in terms of puzzling conventions and the app, and
Right.
it's just become a whole world in and of itself.
Well, one of the things that I really like about working for the New York Times is that they are willing to try anything once. And so there's a lot of experimentation that goes on behind the scenes, and it usually leads to some pretty good stuff. The crossword has always been the flagship product of New York Times games, but now we have other games that have just exploded, like Wordle well, we didn't invent Wordle, but Wordle, which we purchased, Spelling Bee, Connections. There are so many great games that you can play on a daily basis if you subscribe. That it's, it's. I think it's very unusual for a newspaper puzzle section. I think that, our general managers, his whole goal is to make the New York Times game section the preeminent place to go for puzzles. It really works almost like an independent gaming studio.
Absolutely, absolutely. We already have a number of comments coming in, so let's engage with our audience a little bit. Pradnya said earlier that my sound was going in and out, and then said that's better. So I am very sensitive about that. We produce so many shows. Sound is so important. So please keep me honest this morning. I do want to give a special shout out to my mom watching in Tampa, one of our most loyal viewers. Mom, thank you
Hi,
so
Mom.
much. And Deb is saying hi as well. Kavri, we were talking about the crossword, right? But Kavri said it's not funny when you are stuck, when you
Right.
just can't. And I actually, I had used to do the puzzle regularly years ago, and I used to be able to get through Monday and Tuesday, and then kind of maybe half of Wednesday. I picked it up again this week, and although I completed Tuesday, Monday there was like two clues I just couldn't figure out. I just couldn't get to, which was
Right.
obviously frustrating. Um, does Patricia is asking if you have any, you have kind of remember when you first fell in love with puzzles, or do you have a memorable story about kind of first?
I I do, but before I get to that, I'd like to
Sure.
answer, Chowdhury's comment. Yes, it's very frustrating when you get stuck. However, one of the things we do in the wordplay column, and there's a column for every puzzle that comes out Monday through Sunday, um, is we talk about the theme, and because most of the puzzles, except for Friday and Saturday, have a theme, which also helps you solve. And we also go over some of the trickier clues that might confuse some people, the ones that involve wordplay. And we talk about how to think about them so that you don't get stuck, or at least, and I think this is, getting stuck is not just part of solving, but it's also part of life. And I think that one of the things that is helpful when you're stuck, no matter where, is to think of other ways other ways around. Like, if you can't get past the wall, you go over. If not, you go under. If you or you can go around. There are always ways to get unstuck in a crossword puzzle. It's very hard to mess this up once you understand some of the rules. And if people are would like something that they can refer to anytime they want, we have a free guide called How to Solve the New York Times Crossword, which goes over every single kind of clue that you're going to run into. We talk about the attitude of going into a crossword and how to get started. Like, start on Mondays because those are the most straightforward. And gradually work your way through the week. Most people will start to pick it up on a Saturday because that's when they're home. And God help them, because that's the hardest day of the week.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to reassure Chowdhury about that. And yes, please, thank you for putting that up. There's there also at the end of each of the chapters for the guide, there's a mini crossword that helps you practice some of the new skills you've learned from that chapter. So free games, free guide. I think it's a great thing to bookmark because it helps you in every aspect of solving.
So here is the how to solve the New York Times crossword. It's written by Deb Amlen with some illustrations by Elena
Yeah.
Zauza.
Zauza, yes.
Wow. And animations by Lorenzo Fonda. So it's how to get
Great pair.
started. Say again?
I'm saying no, great pair of
Yes.
illustrators.
How to get started. And there's a quick ad, I guess. Start with
Sorry
the
about
Monday
that. I don't
puzzles.
control the ads.
And I knew that Monday was the easier puzzle. Now here, Saturday is the hardest. That's what my understanding is that Sunday is not the hardest. It's actually
Right.
just bigger, right?
Exactly.
How would you say Sunday compares with other days of the week in terms of level of difficulty, if you don't take size into account?
um, the size really doesn't matter except for the fact that it'll probably take you longer to do it. Um, the Sunday is usually clued to about midweek difficulty, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
And so if you can do that, if you can do a Wednesday or Thursday puzzle, you can probably do a Sunday.
Wednesday or Thursday. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And here are some example clues that you have. We need it's poo,
Right,
obviously,
that's a fill in the blank. That's part of what I wanted to talk about when we start to solve is that some of the clues are, it's always great to start with what you know.
Mhm.
And if you can go through the clue list and find a couple of things that you definitely know, like Winnie, the fill in the blanks are usually the easiest because your brain likes to fill in the information. So
Mm.
Winnie, obviously the answer is going to be poo, Pooh. So I would go for that. I would solve that one first. And once you have a few of those answers you're solving, and you can build on those by solving the crossings and stuff and gradually just spreading out the solving until you're done.
Interesting. Anita Joe watching on Twitter says in math and reading activities, self-doubt is usually at play and begins at a very early age.
Yes.
And I assume that also comes into play with crosswords as well. She also says that she wants to learn these rules because she does the crosswords with her students. So we'll share
Wonderful.
the link to this article both
Uh-huh.
on Twitter and on our website for folks in case they missed it and didn't get a chance to go through the details. A few other folks who are commenting. Got to go back to Patricia's question. She wanted to ask about when you first fell in love with puzzles, or if you have a memorable story
Mhm.
about puzzles.
Uh, well, when I first started, I can remember looking over my father's shoulder as he solved the New York Times crossword when I was very young. And I would watch him do this, and I thought he was the smartest man in the world to be able to do stuff like that. I didn't really get involved in solving them myself until I would say right after college. And I, I wanted something to, do after work or on the weekends. And so I started out by solving New York Magazine's puzzle. I don't know if they still have it, but they had a wonderful crossword puzzle at the back. Gradually, I started doing the New York Times crossword. And yes, I got stuck too. I was not a good solver right away because in those days, there was no help for how to solve the crossword. Nothing was online in those days during the Lincoln administration. And, we I just over the years, I would put them down and I'd come back to them. And when I started making them when my kids were very young, and I needed something to occupy my brain other than Elmo and Pokemon and things like that. So I learned through a mentor who was a veteran puzzle maker, and her name was Nancy Solomon. She literally mentored thousands of constructors to publication.
Wow.
And my first puzzle was a Sunday New York Times. My first published puzzle was a Sunday New York Times in May of 2004. So it's a long
May
time.
2004. Is
Yeah.
that what's on the wall behind you?
That's what's on the wall behind me. Yes, it's very
Yeah.
yellow, if you can see it. It was a very lovely thing when my puzzle was published. Some of my friends made that for me. Made that for me, and it was a kindness that obviously I have not forgotten.
That's incredible. And let's see what else we have. Brother sharing the ultimate brag. I do the New York crossword in pen.
Oh,
Um,
that's terrific. Yeah, yeah, I think that's good. I tend to solve online, so, to me, it's, I don't have an eraser, but I do have a delete button.
Yeah,
So
I did the so when I used to do the crossword, I did that on the hard copy on the paper,
mhm.
and then when I did them this week, I did them online, and that was a very interesting experience. Just navigating through, seeing the clues. I didn't kind of see all the clues at the same time the way that I was seeing it. I think on the app, I think on the website, it's a little bit different the way the layout is. It's just a different experience. Um, Sujana is asking, and this is outside of your purview, I think, but and I remember the column by William Safire on
Sure.
language. That's that was a New York Times Magazine column, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Uh, but do you remember that column?
Oh,
Were you a fan?
absolutely, and I remember, Ben Zimmer took over for him for a little while. Truthfully, I don't work for the magazine, so I don't know what their plans are. I think, and, any column that promotes and, describes and discusses language is a good one because, language is a living thing. It's always evolving. And that's part of how it evolves is by discussing it. But
Absolutely.
if they do, I think that would be great. I don't know what their plans are. I do know that we publish on the gameplay section, which is the editorial section of the games desk. Um, we publish a lot of features about language. One
Mhm.
of our other wordplay columnists, Sam Corbin, writes a lot of features on language. Um, I've written stuff on language, and it comes out, but we're a small staff, so we don't have as much time to write about it on a weekly basis.
Sure, sure. We have several other accounts, a lot of interesting interest today in today's show. Radhina says daily meditation for her is the Wordle and spelling bee.
Same,
Um,
same
I
Pradman.
I used to do Wordle pretty
Yeah,
religiously, and what's challenging at home is that I share the subscription with my wife,
yeah.
and my daughter is on her phone a lot. Kind of keep her off of my phone. So they were messing with my Wordle. They would get in, and
Oh
you
no.
almost have to have separate accounts to kind of keep your scores, your streaks, etc. Uh, alive. Let's see what else. So Jenna's husband Chris is all about being queen bee, solving the
That's
right.
fantastic.
Um,
I will tell you that is quite an accolade because most people who play don't get to genius
no,
or
it,
queen bee. So,
I've
you
done
know,
Genius a few times, but never Queen Bee.
yeah,
Um,
that's sort of, an Easter egg level that they don't talk about very much for some reason, but once you, attain genius, you can go on and keep playing until you find all of the accepted words,
yeah,
and you become the next rank is queen bee.
which is
That means
crazy.
you've found all the words.
Naomi says she's happy just finished the mini, which is great.
I'm glad you brought that up, Naomi, and I think it's terrific that you finished the mini. The mini is an awesome, we call those snack size puzzles. You know, they're things you can do sort of on your commute to work and or while you're waiting in a waiting room. Um, if I'm interpreting her statement correctly, it sounds like she's saying I'm just happy to finish the mini because I can't do the crossword, the daily crossword, the big one. And I have to say that that's a very common source of confusion. Most people think that the mini is easier. The mini is another daily puzzle that's put out, in front of the paywall. Anybody can do it. Uh, but the clues in the mini are kind of a mixed bag. We were talking before about how Mondays are the most straightforward, Saturdays are, the hardest of the week. The mini doesn't do that. The mini is a mixed bag of easy and hard clues. So believe it or not, if you can do the mini on a regular basis, you could probably do the crossword puzzle till at least midweek.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's most people come into this with certain assumptions. And I saw somebody commented on this before. You need to be intelligent. Well, I'm here personally to tell you that I'm not that intelligent, but I can do it. Um,
I'm sure you're pretty intelligent, Deb.
well, thank you. Um, Knowing how to do crossword puzzles is more about keeping an open mind and figuring out how to um, think about the clue that's being presented to you. Sometimes they're very straightforward. Sometimes it requires you to think. And the interesting thing about the English language, and I'd be interested in hearing from some of the people who are watching from other countries if this is also true. But one of the interesting things about the English language in particular is that words can have multiple meanings.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say wordplay and a clue, very often they will use a word that is can mean one thing, but the answer really wants you to think about it in a different way. So when people say, "How am I supposed to know that?" I think, well, you look at the clue and you think, "What else could this mean?"
Sure.
That's
Don't go with
I'm
the
going to have
obvious.
that put on a T-shirt one day. What else could this mean? And keep thinking, about all the different meanings that a word could have, because sooner or later, and usually sooner, you're going to figure out that you're supposed to read this in a much different way than you thought.
I wanted to show folks the mini in case they're not familiar with it, and
Yeah.
the way that the Times sets it up on their website. They give you an option if you want to start solving, because they start, and I don't see for the mini. There's no timer on it. I know on the
Uh,
regular, is there a timer?
I thought that there was. It might be. You may have it
Oh, there
turned
it
off
is.
in your settings. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I didn't see it at first. So this is the mini. It's an open grid, 5 by
Today's
5.
is an open grid.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, so sometimes it's filled in, just 5 clues, across and down, um, and I'm assuming some of the same rules, some same tips apply to the
Mm,
mini, right? Like, there's a truth blank, which you were saying if your
yeah.
mind wants to fill in the blank and
Right.
that
I
kinda
It's a
thing?
little small for me to see, but,
Oh, sorry,
which one is no, that's okay. What, Halloween
I'll
couture
make it
with
bigger for
a
you.
bed sheet. Okay, well, what kind of Halloween costume do people wear? If you've ever watched Peanuts and Charlie Brown, you probably
Exactly,
know the answer to this, involving
exactly.
a bed sheet.
So, well, let's ask our audience. We'll do a practice run for what we're gonna do at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Folks, if you think you know the answer for one across Halloween costume with a bed sheet, let us know. Type it in the comments. The other clues, and hopefully you can read them. It's big enough now. Role for Leonardo DiCaprio in a '90s romantic tragedy.
Mhm.
I certainly can remember the movie. Um, I'm gonna struggle a little bit with the character,
Okay.
but once we fill it out, we'll kind of see other
Right, and
clues, right?
here's a good example of what to do when you get stuck. If you don't know the answer, look at all of the crossings, all of the downs, and see
Around
if
it.
you can fill in a few of them.
We have several people jumping in with Ghost.
Yep.
Keith Blair is watching. Keith, don't recognize your name. You might be a first-time commenter, maybe a long-time viewer. Thank you for joining us. But Keith and Naomi, Ghost, even
Yep.
I got that.
See, that's what I'm saying, Naomi. Don't be afraid. I mean, you know a lot more than you think you do.
And Sujana just gave us the emoji, so thank you for that. So let's type in Ghost.
Okay.
So what I do is when I see this, I start looking at the downs.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I know that's going to lead with a G. Wrap one's mind around.
Hmm.
2 down is float like a hummingbird.
I
Makes
think
me
I
think
know
of
that one.
Muhammad Ali. Um,
Well,
3 down, upscale Swiss watch that shares its name with a Greek letter. That I know of that. 4 down, truth something, and then 5 down is slangy for sure. And then the other ones across, 6 role for Leonardo DiCaprio.
okay.
7 is thwart as disaster. 8, switching gears here or on a similar note, and British baby buggies.
Ah, well, I can fill in a couple of those if you want.
Sure, so Naomi thinks, hover. I didn't get which one that was,
2
but I'm
down.
guessing that's 2 down, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's go that. And I have to click on this to get there we go. HOVER.
Mhm.
Alright, we're
I
clicking
I
now.
think that 1 down is guess.
Yes,
That's
okay.
my guess. Yeah.
Sujana thought it was a glean, but,
Well, it's
uh,
possible.
if
Oh,
it's
you know
well,
what?
let's
I think you're right, Sujana, because you would not have a U and an O in 6
have you
across.
know, so let's try glean, and, so then that
Oh,
would give,
well, I don't know because unless all right, you know what? Let's come back to it.
let's come back to it. So 7
Um,
across, thwart
okay.
as in a
I think
disaster.
can I
What do you think?
jump in for a sec?
Please, please, please.
If you can scroll back up a little bit.
Sure.
Okay. 9 across, I think, is prams.
That's what I would have thought as well.
Right.
Um,
Okay, so can we take out the L, the E, and
yep.
the A just so they're not a distraction?
I'm
Uh,
gonna jump in with 3 down,
mhm,
omega
right.
is my guess
Type it
here.
in, I think so.
So now let's look to our viewers. What are we seeing? Um, Sujana thinks loan, maybe?
Uh, I'm
No,
sorry, where?
I don't see where that would fit in actually.
Yeah.
Loman, though, is that
Well,
possible? 6
what
across.
is I
No.
did he do I don't know if he did the Willy Loman would be,
Yeah, I don't think he.
uh, Death of a Salesman. I don't think that's a romantic
It's
comedy.
it's gotta
A
be
romantic
Titanic, right?
oh,
What
well,
was
a romantic tragedy? Possibly. But let's see, 5 down, I think I knew.
slangy
Oh,
for sure.
no. Truth, I
Truth is
don't know
4
what
down,
that one
something
is.
S something.
6 across, you see what I mean? Some of them you can get right away, and let's see. How about 7 across? Thwart as a disaster, I think is going to be avert.
Avert. Um, 7 across, okay.
Yes.
And
I could be
Susan has
wrong.
another option on, for, uh, let's see, so
Oh, okay.
Romeo,
I think it's
where is
Romeo,
jumping in?
and I
Yes,
think yeah, I think that, yeah, a couple of people are saying avert. I think grasp. I think
yep,
1 down is grasp.
I saw that. And then that would be, 8 across. Would that be segue?
I believe it is.
Um, and I think we got it.
Yep.
Now that is actually we're gonna do some with the full crossword. And congratulations, we solved it in 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes together. Which is great.
Yeah.
So we are going to do some of that together at 10 a.m. Eastern time. If folks can stay, we will work on the Sunday puzzle together. I don't think we're going to finish it in 6.5 minutes, like we did with the mini, but that is a great example. And a lot of the tips that you were talking about earlier about filling in the blank, looking for the words that go across, thinking of different meanings, all came into play. So that was a lot of fun. And that's just a small thing. I wanted to show. I went to the games page because I also wanted to show kind of the broader look of what the Times has to offer. Obviously, the crossword, and the mini. But there's also Spelling and Wordle we talked about. There's Strands and Connections. I've played Connections before. Never played Strands.
Strands is sort of like a word search, but there's a theme to it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And then Letterbox and Tiles.
Tiles I love because I love matching games. Letterboxd is a lot of fun. You have to make words out of letters around a box. And I happen to be really bad at it. But in fact, I wrote a whole article about how bad I am at it, but it also gives tips on how to think about the game.
And then there's also that's just graphic at the end. So those are the games that we have.
With more coming.
And more coming.
Yeah.
What, 2025? Is that there's new games coming out?
Yep. I can't really talk about it, but yes.
Of course not. No, I wasn't going to ask you.
There's always little inventive, creative stuff going on at New York Times Games. I was wondering if I could ask somebody a question. I think it's John Lee said that he had given a talk at his work about the crossword puzzle mindset when it comes to problem solving. I'd love to hear what that's about.
Absolutely. And John was a former guest on the show. He's a VP at Goodman Media International, focusing on PR. He also has a great podcast, Irish Stew, bringing together the Irish diaspora from around the world.
Wow.
He did a series. Recently had their 100th episode. And he actually sent me a direct message after I pushed out the show. He told me that he had used this in pocket work. So John, feel free, if you there's a limit in terms of how long your comment can be on YouTube, but tell us a little bit more about what you did, or if there's a link you can share, any more details. We'd love to hear about it, and we'll certainly put it on the screen. In terms of the doing the mini together, Naomi said it takes a village, absolutely, which is great. And Sergio said that was fun.
I'm sorry, solving with friends is a terrific thing to do. A lot of people think it's a very solitary pastime, and I'm sorry to jump in on you like that, but I think it's wonderful to solve with people. I think it's a real bonding experience, and most people do pick up solving from someone they love. Like I saw my dad doing it. I've heard people tell me that, they used to go visit their grandmother and, she'd feed them cookies while they solved the puzzle together, and they'd dunk it in hot chocolate. Lots of heartwarming stuff. There's, crossword puzzles bring people together. They really do.
I think the key is as long as people want to do it together. Because what you don't want is if someone is doing a crossword, you lean over their shoulder. Oh, you know what? 2 across.
Oh, yeah. No, there were people like, don't tell me, la, la, la.
One thing that's interesting in terms of the columns that you do, you write Thursday, Friday columns, right? So,
I used to write all of them. I used to write all of them a week. And when that became untenable, because I was also doing other things, writing other features and doing things behind the scenes, I was lucky enough to bring on Caitlin Lovinger, who does the weekend columns now, and Sam Corbin, who I mentioned before, does the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday columns. And I kept Thursday, Friday, because those are my favorites.
One thing that I thought was interesting, just in terms of the cadence and kind of the how content is pushed out. The columns come out even before the print edition of the paper, right? Because you put the
Well,
puzzle out online.
they come out. They come out when the online puzzle publishes. I don't know about the print edition, but the reason they come out the evening before. So, for example, today is Sunday. The Monday puzzle and wordplay column will publish tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. Um, the reason for them coming out the night before, which is really confusing when you want to produce these columns and puzzles, is a throwback to when we were asked to meet the same schedule as the print edition, which would reach newsstands and people sometimes the night before. I don't know if that's still a thing, but we have not moved it. So it's if you do the crossword puzzle and hopefully come to Wordplay to read and discuss about it, because there's also a huge community, a huge comment section on Wordplay where people like to talk about it and encourage each other, sometimes brag about how fast they did it. That will appear at the same time that the online puzzle publishes.
Well, we'll be able to follow up next week and get a little bit more detail on the production side of things. Mike Connors, who is the managing director at the College Point plant for the New York Times, was going to be our guest. And Sri did an interview with him several years ago where he actually did try and do a live interview and a show with him walking around the plant.
Oh, wow.
Signal was challenging in there, but I actually got a tour last year. Was it last year? I think last year I came to New York, and this is how I celebrated my birthday, Deb. I was in New York for a week, and I combined 2 Yankee games and a tour of the New York Times printing plant and an interview with Jake Silverstein in his office on a Wednesday afternoon.
Well, you made the most of your time.
In addition to a big birthday, celebration that my mom threw for me. But that's how I celebrated. And Mike actually picked me up. This is great. He lives north of town. He picked me up from my mom's house on Sunday. I think it was Sunday or Monday evening. I think it was Sunday evening, and drove me down to the press. Gave me the tour, and then I stayed overnight in Queens. Went into the city the next day for a conference. But how incredible is to have Mike Connors pick you up and chauffeur you down.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. And boy, I'm tired just listening to that.
But in terms of print, my understanding is that the first editions hit the streets sometime at like 3 in the morning in New York. But it does have to, like, the print edition has to go out much earlier. Like the for Sundays in particular, I think they close the Bulldog edition at like noon or 2 o'clock.
It's early.
Get that so that it's printed at 27 plants around the country, including, for me, it's the Washington Post that prints the paper.
Right.
But it can push a little bit late. The latest I think that they can go is almost like 11 o'clock, maybe pushing to midnight to get the papers in New York. But we'll kind of talk about that and see what he says. One of the things that I want to make sure that we talk about is the Super Mega Crossword from a couple weeks ago, and we have that on our site table. So I'm going to go ahead and get that on screen for folks. And we're not going to focus on Puzzlemania.
My copy.
of your copy. But tell us a little bit about the Super Mega. This is a 51 by 51 grid puzzle.
Yeah, just a little bit of backstory for people who aren't aware of it. Um, Once a year, usually around Christmas time, the New York Times puts out a special section called Puzzlemania, and it is filled with, I mean, just lots and lots and lots and lots of puzzles and games you can play. I happen to love this. It started out in 2016 as a gift to print subscribers, and you know, the magazine had realized that they did not. They gave a lot of online special like gifts and things for people to do, but they had very rarely done anything for the print subscribers. They wanted to do something with puzzles. So Jake Silverstein, who was the editor of the magazine, and Caitlin Roper, who at the time was, you know, the person who designed the entire section, and Will Shorts got together and decided to put out a 12-page special section that would be included with the Sunday New York Times sometime in December, called Puzzlemania. And there are, like I said, yeah, there are visual puzzles, there are word puzzles, marching bands is terrific. That's a lot of fun. I think if you go over to the other side, the spiral, that's my favorite.
Oh yeah.
That was actually made by Will Shorts, and there are clues going. There are clues going inward to the spiral, and then there's another set of clues going outward. And you gradually, some of the words overlap, and you gradually fill it in until the whole thing is done. And I love those.
Blue pyramid.
Yeah,
And
a cryptic
crossword,
which in most of the world is just called a crossword, but here we call them cryptics to distinguish from the American style crosswords. And there's the Super Mega.
Wow.
It's so big, it has to go. That's a broadsheet, which is pretty large. And it's so big, the puzzle, that it has to go across both pages. And then the clues are on another page because there's obviously a lot of them.
There's no room.
This year, the Super Mega was made by Sid Sivakumar, who has made puzzles for the New York Times. And yep, there they are, the clues.
Those are the clues. It's the whole page.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the things that people really love about this is, again, if you're going to solve in a group or, you know, have something to talk about with your family during holiday time, I know people will leave it out on a table and people can come along and fill in what they want. I put mine up in my dining room on the wall, and during the holiday season, anyone who comes over or whatever is welcome to throw in a couple of answers if they can. It's nice, and it really, it's sort of like the difference between a you know, a regular lollipop and an all-day sucker. The thing that this lasts for a long time.
I'm sure.
And you can come and go. There's no pressure. If you're stuck, you walk away and you do, you know, have some eggnog or whatever it is that, you know, you're doing at the time. And I think it's a really, really nice way to at least have some activity during the holiday season. Some people solve it themselves. And I have an article also about how to solve the Super Mega.
Yeah. You had that out. I'm curious about, so on this page, you have the answers to all of the puzzle. They're upside down, make it a little bit harder for folks. You make a little bit of effort to figure it out. The answers for the Super Mega crossword.
Well, we're not. There's a reason why the answers are not there. In addition to having the puzzle to solve, there's a contest that we have every year involving the Super Mega, sometimes some of the other puzzles. But the contest asks you to solve a meta, which is sort of an extra little bit of puzzle that goes along with it. I believe for this one, let me see. I'm sorry.
So it's $1,000 prize.
Yeah,
they're due January 7th.
I think that you have to. There's usually a note that says
what to do.
Yeah, what to do. After you finish the puzzle, remove one letter from each set of circled squares. There's some circled squares in the grid to spell a word. The letters you remove from top to bottom will form an appropriate 2-word phrase. When you have the phrase, send it by email to, and there's an address there, crosswordcontest@nytimes.com. And it came out a little early this year. I'm sure they have tons of people who have already submitted answers. And then the top winner is selected from among the correct answers by, random generator. And then there are additional prizes that go with that. And the answers to the Super Mega, and this is a really long way around, but to answer your question, the answers to the Super Mega will be published when the contest is over and the winners are announced.
Of course, that makes sense. That's so. And you wrote about the Super Mega, what it takes to put it together, and the evolution of it. I think, if I remember correctly, the software that people use to create crosswords can't handle this, right?
No, they can do it, but by and large, what most of the constructors do is they construct it in sections and then put it all together, which is not easy, especially because all the words have to interlock.
Now, a standard crossword during the week is what size? What's the dimensions?
I would, it varies, but it's the average is 15 by 15 squares.
15 by
and
15.
The Sundays are generally 21 by 21. This is 51 by 51.
Wow. And is it and is this maximized for the for what you can print in terms of a centerfold broadsheet? Like, are you going as?
I don't think. I mean, if you look at the sides, they really can't get much bigger than that. Now, also, we like to test our constructors, but we don't want to kill them. I mean, that's much bigger than that, and nobody would want to do it.
I mean, it's a square. You'd have to lose a little bit of the. You'd have to maybe move the title to the left and stack it or something to.
Or yes, see page 10 for the title of the bus.
Well, I mean, if we're playing layout, right? You can move the instructions over, maybe expand it a little bit. You might be able to get a couple extra.
Well, you guys do, marketing and design, so I would say that you're probably a good person to comment on that.
I mean, it's centered, so that's a good thing. It looks balanced and nice.
Right.
But if you ever wanted to really push the limit, but Puzzlemania is great. It's 50 puzzles. We actually had. Now that I think about it, I think this was 2 years ago in January. We had Greg Pliska join us.
Oh,
right? Did you recognize?
I love Greg. Yeah.
So he had helped if I remember correctly, he didn't do the Super Mega, but he did several of the other puzzles.
Yes.
In Puzzlemania. He was talking about that and sharing some insights.
Right.
What that was. That was great.
If you're interested in how to approach a puzzle like this, of this size, in addition to how the Super Mega is made, the article I have that just came out, there's one I wrote a couple of years ago called How to Solve the Most Humongous Crossword You've Ever Seen, or something like that. And I give tips, including, don't panic, because it's a lot to look at. But once you get started and you start working on it, and you don't have to do it all in one day. It's done over a long period of time. There are some tips on how to get into a puzzle that big.
This is how to approach the biggest crossword you've ever solved.
That's it.
this was a 2022 column that
Yeah.
you wrote. Puzzlemania's super mega crossword may look overwhelming. You've got this. Here are tips for a successful solve. And this was the column you wrote. And then there's also, you mentioned the one that you wrote just this year about the super mega.
Right.
How
It's
the New York
how it's made.
crossword.
Yeah.
This article is on our website. We'll add the others that you mentioned. If folks are interested, they definitely should go to our website. Not only can you get the PDF of today's crossword, if you want to work on it afterward, if you don't have, you can also get several articles about New York Times crosswords. You go to digimentors.group/NYTReadalong and look for the show with Deb Amlen. You will find all of these links. And what a great, some great insights on puzzling and how they're made. We'll take a look at a few more comments. Dr. Tachi is joining us, usually from Florida. Dr. Tachi, thank you for joining us. And yes, that crossword is huge.
Yep. It's only once a year, Dr. Tachi, so don't worry.
And Naomi said it was visually arresting, which is not just the crossword, but the rest of it. It's just very interesting for folks who are now familiar with crosswords, and they've expanded into spelling bee and Wordle and other kind of games, particularly ones online. It's great to see other formats and other approaches to puzzle in Puzzlemania.
Yeah, you know, there are countless number of puzzles to make, and one of the things I love about Puzzlemania is it really opens people up to different kinds of solving, and they all need different skill sets and stuff. I think it's terrific, and they're so much fun. They really are.
So we're going to switch gears now and look at the Sunday New York Times for the next half hour. And as a reminder for folks, if you can stay for a little bit after 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, we will work on the Sunday New York Times Crossword with Deb. We did the mini together earlier. We'll see what we can do with the Sunday New York Times Crossword.
Oh boy.
We're not going to try and solve it together. At least we can get a couple of clues done.
Oh, sure.
We'll kind of scan through and see what's there. Well, let's go ahead and switch to the paper. If you had any other final comments?
I will say that if you have already tried to do today's puzzle, or if you have, let me switch that. If you have never solved a New York Times crossword puzzle, this is probably not a good one to start with. However, it is a fantastic puzzle if you are really into being challenged and seeing some of the most creative work that you will witness in crosswords. Today's puzzle is by David Kwong, who is a magician, crossword puzzle maker, showman, and he is also a puzzle constructor, which is what puzzle makers are called, for the New York Times. His puzzles, and once you start to recognize some of the bylines, you'll begin to understand how some of them think, or some of their styles. This puzzle, his puzzles always have some sort of a mysterious, magical twist to them. Some people, I love being fooled. I once wrote, a long time ago, I wrote a column called Fooled for Being Fooled. And it's really about appreciating misdirection and wordplay. And I will say that David is probably one of the best at this sort of stuff. Some people get frustrated when they don't know an answer. for me, it's almost like watching a magic trick where you're like, ooh, I wonder how they did that. And, in my case, I wish I had thought of it. Yeah, that was our old format.
Well, format, full for being fold.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that was, my love letter to the kind of misdirection you'll see in crossword puzzles, and why people like being fooled. Again, to me, it's like watching a magic trick.
And I'll say this is the old format, but I actually like the way that it's set up with the recent posts, and then the blog roll of other apps, celebrity guest solvers, the
Right.
crossword tournaments, the indie puzzles, a lot
That
of
was
content, a lot of
Yeah,
great links in here.
that was an old format, so you won't see that on Wordplay anymore.
Yeah,
That was we were writing in a different
of course,
CMS, but
of course.
uh, yeah, but that was my love letter to misdirection. And like
Yeah.
I said, David is one of the best at things like this. So I was really happy. I was happy to see his byline this morning, because I think that when I see it, I know that I'm in for some fun.
So Naomi says, great and fun show, a nice departure during these uncertain times.
Oh, thank you.
And certainly we're all feeling that.
Yeah.
Ken Fisher says his World War II Navy vet dad was a tenacious and fantastic crossword solver. He greatly influenced my love of words and later my skill at problem solving as an engineer. What a
Yeah,
nice
that's
tribute
great.
here.
How
That is
wonderful.
really. Let's go ahead and jump into the paper. We'll look at that for about half an hour, and then a little less than half an hour, and then go to the puzzle. Interesting to do.
Well, if you don't mind my just jumping in here,
Yeah,
I
sure.
was
Go.
talking before about how fill in the blanks tend to be some of the easier clues, that not always, but most of the time, because your brain likes to fill in the information.
Mhm.
That's the front page. That's the home
Okay.
page. Okay. So are we talking about the crossword?
No, not the crossword yet. So we're going to talk about the newspaper, and then get to the crossword at 10 o'clock. We're going to do our regular read along of the paper.
Okay.
So take a look at the front page, and I'm going to take this moment to give a huge shout out. I can't thank her enough, and she might be able to hear me, although she might be back asleep. My wife this morning saved the day,
Uh,
saved the show. So I get the New York Times delivered at home, and I always look to see, is the bag out there on the driveway? It is. I subscribe to the Post, but I don't get the print edition because I don't really read that. But we do leave it online. But I saw the bag today. Like, oh great, the paper's there. And when I went out to get it, it was the Washington Post, not the New York Times. 5 minutes before
they
we're
have a
going to
good puzzle
go on
too.
air. What's that? They have a puzzle too.
Yeah, they have a good puzzle too.
I had to wait. We were out up late last night. I had to wake my wife up. Pam got up and ran to the grocery store and got the Sunday paper and brought it to my office so that we could do the read along.
Oh,
Thank you, Pam. Oh my God. Never had that happen before. I hope it never happens again. The display story. This is Syria. Syrians confront horrors inside a torture prison's halls. Of course, last week we had breaking news Sunday morning. It wasn't in the print edition, but Bashar al-Assad fled Syria 7:30 in the morning on Sunday is when the news broke. So we showed that online. Um, Lawmakers vote to oust leader in South Korea. President Bao's fight, if you remember, he declared martial law. There was an impeachment vote that he survived at first. I think it may be a party vote, but then he was voted out. And then the other lead, phones fueling violent scenes at U.S. schools. Lure of viral videos provokes melees. That is very interesting. It's something I'm very interested in terms of phone use in schools among young people. My daughter's 11. It's an ongoing conversation about when she's going to get a phone. We're holding off as much as we can, much less social media. This reefer, we definitely want to take a look at whatever happened to the Lady Jaguars. The New York Times profiled a winless team of troubled girls in 2012 and 2013. Recently, we wonder, as adults, had they fulfilled their hopes of a better life? It's a special section. John Branch is be reporting on this. He's a former guest on the show, and we love his writing. We want to take a look at that section. There's another article, Trump lawsuit. Sorry, ABC will settle Trump lawsuit for $15 million. There's a defamation suit. I definitely want to take a look at that and really curious what that means for news coverage. If ABC is forced to settle a suit, what was it that the suit was about? How were they defaming him? Really important questions about journalism and politics. The other article on the front page: Indigenous people in Canada weigh costs of a gas windmill. Pierce Island land has been cleared for a gas facility. So we always take time to go through the A-book. I would make it a point, and we'll talk to Mike about this next week. The New York Times, the college printing plan, print 45 pages, I believe. This A section is 38 pages, but the other printing plans across the country can only go 24 pages. So you almost get like a second part of the book kind of tucked in, and these articles get a little bit more visibility if you're just looking through. I always thought it's interesting. But let's take a look at A2 and A3 real quickly. We had Megan Trolio on a few years ago when they redesigned A2 and A3, and last week Sarah Barr was our guest. She works on the editing desk. I know that she works with the games team sometimes. And she writes a lot of the Times Insider columns, so she was very familiar with this. This Times Insider is actually written by John Branch, which is not usually the case. Usually they have someone interviewing the lead writer, but he wrote an insider piece, the privilege of reuniting with the Lady Jaguar, which is really interesting. I always like the Dateline, where Times journalists are reporting from around the world. This week they're highlighting British Columbia, Kitimat, and Coronado, California, Bucharest, Romania, and Juba in South Sudan. David Dunlap has a piece here. I know John Otis wrote it. Usually it's David Dunlap. Found in the files, an artifact from the morgue, the Times Clippings Library. This is a different.
Right.
This is about Jeff Roth, the caretaker of the morgue, the New York Times Clippings and Photos Archives, was looking through the file of Igor Stravinsky, the Russian composer, this year. He discovered a curious photo. So that's always fun to take a look at. And then we talked about the games columns in the context of service journalism earlier. This is the Times Here to Help, Travel 101, how to avoid pickpockets and street scams, which is good for folks not just in the U.S., but when you're traveling as well. And they have the mini crossword right here on page 3. I didn't realize that. I don't know that I've noticed that in the past. So that's interesting what you see. And this the one that we just solved earlier.
Right.
Which is cool. What else they have? The International, Brazil's Oscar contender strikes a nerve. Drama on how junta tore a family apart. There's the story there. Blinken and Arab ministers discuss the political transition in Syria. This is more about Syria. Syrians confront horrors inside of torture prisons' halls. Lawmakers in South Korea vote to impeach president. Those are both on the front page. And automakers struggle with market shift in competition from China. Is on the top left there. Canadians await holiday gifts and prescriptions. That's interesting. In Canada last month, striking postal workers in Surrey, British Columbia, and in a drone photo, Canada Post truck in Mississauga, Ontario. The government sought a back-to-work order Friday. Back to work is proving very contentious in a lot of places. We always like pointing out the full page ads, Deb. And they're not. It's often I don't remember seeing them often on the left hand side. This one is a book by Henry Kissinger, Craig Mundy, and Eric Schmidt. Artificial Intelligence, Hope, and the Human Spirit. Genesis. Very interesting. Let's see. This is the a 2-page spread. The Indigenous people in Canada with cost of a gas windfall. Some great photography here. Most likely color photos online. And then in the national section, in the land of Christmas trees, Hope after Helene. This comes from North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, as well. Absolutely devastated by the hurricane earlier this year. Political stories. Interesting. Tired of winning. Look at Trump's cabinet. I wonder what that focus is. Polls strength in 2024, spotting the big trends. Trump's night owl. And then top Democrats try to put a sunny spin on 2024. Here is that story about a lure of student-created viral videos and violence across U.S. schools. The aggression begins in technology, continues through the technology and the planning for the fights, and comes to a head in physical confrontation. Okay, that's disturbing. I know from talking with a local parent who has a student in the secondary school my daughter will be going to next year, 7th, 12th, and like her son in particular makes it a point to avoid going to the bathroom during the day because of all the fights that take place in the bathroom during school, which is just incredible. University of Michigan fires DEI official, the right-hand side there. Air Force Academy sued over race decisions. And then this is in that end of the A-book, where they actually continues just a little bit. We're going to take a look at that. I think that the obits should be in this. Deb, are you a fan of obits? Do you read obits?
I do read them, not every day, but it's always nice to know who's no longer with us. But I also learn a lot from them.
It's a great history lesson.
Yeah, it is.
And we've had Amy Padnani on the show. She has led a project called Overlooked, printing and publishing, and she printed a book as well, publishing obits for women and people of color in particular who did not get an obit the first time.
Right. People who were overlooked.
Yeah, exactly. Sujana has a comment from earlier. ABC is weak about the defamation suit. Stephanopoulos said Trump was convicted in civil court for rape. All of that is true. ABC should not have settled. The media is leading our downward spiral. Thank you for the insight on that, Sujana. Appreciate that. I was not familiar with that story. So Charles Handy, philosopher who predicted work shift, Needs of Unreason was his book. And then Martin Benson, founded renowned California theater that won a Tony. He directed 119 productions and won 7 Los Angeles Drama Critics Circle Awards. Dolores Madrigal, 90, plaintiff in a key suit on sterilization, dies. Rodney Jenkins, 80, empathic writer who ruled the Trojan circuit, 80 as well. And this is, at least in outside of New York, the sports section is just a couple of pages here. This is a football story, the LeBron James of the NFL. It's a basketball story. Belichick going to North Carolina. College, some football. Yes, we'll call it football for our international audience. Hope redeems new bloated format of Champions League. And then the New York section, again, the truncated metro section for folks outside of New York. To earn millions of fans, ridiculed a rich in his TikTok videos, an enterprising man mocks spoiled scions for fun and profit. and city is aiming to prevent driver lockouts for Uber and Lyft. That is the A-book. Let's go ahead and take a look at that special report by John Branch, Lady Jaguars. Do you happen to remember that story, Deb? Are you familiar with this?
No, but I would read pretty much anything that John Branch writes.
Agreed. I want to give a quick shout out to Arlene Schulman, who is watching from Inwood in Manhattan. I love reading obits, some of the best writing, particularly by Penelope Green and Sam Roberts.
Oh, definitely. And shout out to Inwood because that's where my grandparents lived. I spent a lot of time up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Arlene is a former guest on the show. She actually was featured in the Times back in the spring for her apartment, her rent-controlled apartment, and they featured it. We had her on the show, and they actually, it was funny that the Times social media team kept re-upping that article, kept doing sponsored posts about it. And she did a video. Arlene, tell us a little bit about it in the comments. A video reading some of the comments that people had about the article. People would read the headline and then make assumptions and talk about rent control, et cetera. They did not understand what was going on. So, Arlene, that was still a great experience to have you on the show. And please share information about that video you put together. Diana is joining from the other coast, from California. Thank you, Diana. And Arlene just mentioned she's watching from her rent stabilized apartment in a building that was once home to Dr. Ruth. I forgot to mention that as well, Dr. Ruth. Mary Curtis wanted to give a shout out to Richard Sandomir, also an excellent obit writer. And I first actually encountered Richard when he was on the sports desk. So he's definitely a great writer. So this is John Branch's piece, taking a look at the Lady Jaguars 10 years later. Whatever happened to the Lady Jaguars? We're going to flip through this real quick. They have a side-by-side photo. So in 2012, Hannah came from a home broken by poverty and addiction. She found comfort in Carroll Academy and the Lady Jaguars basketball team. 2024, after years on the streets and following a meth bust, Hannah was released into a supervised recovery program and got a job. She feels lucky. And it's kind of showing where Hannah was. And then there are more side-by-side photos here, 2012 and 2013 from left. Destiny was the team's high scorer and best player with a good three-point shot. Summer had been a senior, a 17-year-old mom, and the team's queen bee. Aaliyah at right was a sassy sprite of the girl from the project. So those are three pictures across the top. And then the bottom from left, Destiny has spent time living on the street and in jail and was looking for a fresh start. Summer has 7 children now, 6 of them with her partner, Junior. And Aaliyah found serenity recovery residence in Florida. What a privilege to go back and see where people are now 10 years later. You don't always get to do that. There's almost like snapshots. Articles are snapshots of people that are particularly and great photography as well. This is another special. We do have the PDF. Wayne Camadoy, the art director for the Times, did send the PDF to us, so we will add this to our website as well. As taking a look. I believe you can also get it online. Sometimes it's nice to see the layout and the way they handle the photographs as well. So that's the full section. They actually did put stuff on the back page as well. They had, from the archive. They did the original a picture of the original article ain't about the which is interesting. And a couple of the pages inside. That's really cool. So as we approach 10 o'clock, I want to remind folks that we are going to be staying on for 10 to work on the Sunday crossword together. So if you have a few extra minutes, please stay and join us for that. Patricia says, thank you, Deb, and the entire New York Times Read Along production team. Another great episode. Arlene shared a link. So many people commented, and the Times kept running it on Facebook and Instagram. The comments were priceless. Here's a link to a walk. So definitely check that out later. Naomi says, excellent, fun program. On to the crossword du jour. Absolutely, Naomi. We'll be there in just a moment. We'll just take a quick scan of the rest of the paper. The Sunday opinion. Eric, sorry, but this is how we'll feed the planet. The bucolic farms of York can't produce the food we need. Learn to love industrial agriculture. So that's a look into our future. The Sunday business is an interesting illustration. In Silicon Valley, one famous road, two divergent paths. The debate about the future of an industry that funds and fosters American innovation. In the article, filmmaker, spy, and France's richest man meet in court. Interesting. We have Sunday styles, and remind folks about the doing the crossword at 10 a.m. Sunday style, substance to match their style. In a year of brats and cowboys, Taylor and Beyonce references, witches and swans, Elphaba. Not sure what the swan reference is. Some people and things truly stood out. So this looks like the most styles-ish for 2024. It'll be interesting to take a look at. Arts and leisure. It's a best something. Make out the word best. Best of 2024, I guess, just in general for arts and leisure. But what is that on the cover? Some kind of zippered, maybe a jacket or something? I wonder if there's an explanation on the inside page. Let's see. Inside culture. I'm not seeing a front page description real quick. So we'll have to wonder about that. Book review. The best books of 24. So a lot of the best of coming out 2 weeks before the end of the year. And then New York Times Magazine, The Silence of Alice Munro. This is interesting. The Nobel-winning author knew her husband was a pedophile who sexually abused her daughter. She kept it a secret, except in her celebrated short stories. We have a couple of comments, and we will certainly get to those. But again, I want to remind folks that our guest today was Deb Amlen. Has been Deb Amlen. Will continue to be Deb Amlen. We are thrilled that we are going to continue the show for a little bit. We're going to talk about the Sunday crossword and try and solve some of it together. But a few comments that came in. Let's see. Anna had a funny story about crosswords. Arlene was asking, Deb, where did your parents live in England?
It was actually my grandparents, and oh boy, I'm so bad with names. I know that they lived for a while across from George Washington High School. I don't remember the name of the street. Sorry, but I have a lot of good memories of being up there.
Okay. And I want to remind folks that next week, our last show of 2024, Mike Connors. That was when it was breaking news this morning. I didn't update the ticker. But I do have a graphic for it. Mike Connors is going to be our guest. He is the managing director for the New York Times production department at College Point, and he is going to be talking about some of the special sketches they printed recently and the production of the paper in general. So we definitely encourage you to join us for that. But as we approach the 10 o'clock hour, perfect time to get Diana's comment about crosswords. Funny story about crosswords. I don't like doing the crosswords. I love being in a house when someone is doing that. It becomes a family activity for suggestions. Also, people be respectfully quiet when someone is do the crossword. Such a lovely morning.
It is. It's very nice. I like that. I think that that's a wonderful way to classify it. And I actually do enlist people also if I'm having trouble with a clue. Like I ask my son if I have any questions about computers or uh, a Greek mythology. Those are just two topics he seems to, know a lot about. I ask my husband about sports clues because I don't really follow sports, and he tends to be very knowledgeable there. So it is nice, and it really is a great way to open up conversations with friends and family.
Absolutely. And it's really just the idea of doing it together is fun.
Mhm.
So let's go ahead and get the crossword up. And let's see what we can do together.
Yeah.
Uh,
May
this,
I just answer a comment that I saw from Ellen Amron Austin?
yes, yes,
I,
I'll put it up.
Hi, Ellen. She says that she's trying to do the crossword right now, or at least trying to. Hang in there. This is, I think I said this at the top of the show. This is not a crossword for the faint of heart. And if you are not used to doing Sunday crosswords, particularly by David Kwong, um, this has a lot of stuff in it. I'll talk about that more. I don't want to spoil too much because there's still people doing the puzzles, but there is a wordplay column that goes along with this on the gameplay section. Today's column. Um, that will help you if you scroll through. We have hints at some of the clues, we discuss the theme, and this requires knowledge of a couple of different ways to solve a crossword. It doesn't require a lot of general knowledge, but you have to expect some twisty things going on from David Kwong.
Sure. Um, I'll just share. My mom says great guest, so thank you.
Thank you,
You
Mrs.
got mom's seal of approval. Arlene is talking more about Inwood across from George Washington High School is George Washington High School in Audubon Avenue, East and Wadsworth. All in
Okay.
that area, so many stories of people who live in parts. And Sujana says, a great show. When the kids were little, I knew they could answer, got them all hooked. Good
Good
job.
for you, Sujana.
So this is when we usually end our show, but we are going to keep going. For folks who are avid crossword puzzlers and are really interested in what's going on, if you don't want to watch us do the puzzle, this is when you should log off and come back. If you want to watch the 10 o'clock part, you can fast forward to the end. After you finish the puzzle, you can come back and do it. You don't want to kind of disrupt the routine.
Right.
But for folks who, for the New York Times read-along family, this is the first time that we are working on a full crossword together. And we did a little bit of the mini earlier, kind of just as a teaser and appetizer. But we are going to jump into the full crossword in just a moment. Naomi says, my late mother did it in pen when we lived in a suburb of Philly. So that's interesting. So with that, let's add the crossword to the screen. Art heist is the theme of the puzzle. The name?
Well, interesting. You should ask. The only puzzle in the New York Times that runs with a title like Art Heist is the Sunday puzzle, and yes, it usually has something to do with the theme of the puzzle. But there's also a note if you hit the play button.
So let's go hit play.
Okay.
Go to the note.
So usually I guess there wasn't enough room for it. There's a biography of the constructor, but there's also a note here. You won't find that on the digital version. 10 paintings have been stolen by a master thief. To solve this caper, locate each stolen painting in the grid, then identify the squares in the across answers from which they've been taken. In their place, the thief has left behind 10 pieces of evidence, letters in the downs. Read them from top to bottom to reveal a message. Now, that's where the humor comes in, and you'll see that if you finish the puzzle. A lot of people, when they start doing a crossword puzzle, think that you should start at one across. I find that is, sometimes I'll do that, but what I generally do is I will scroll down the list of clues and start to look for things that I definitely know. If you want to go down to the puzzle.
Well, and before I do that, Deb, because you mentioned the bio that is in the real version, I want to bring up the PDF, which again you can get from our website. But I just want to give David a little bit of a shout out, a little bit of background.
Absolutely.
In terms of his bio, David Kong is a magician and crossword constructor in Los Angeles. He was the head magic consultant on the 2013 film Now You See Me, and has consulted on magic and puzzles for many other shows. He wrote his honors thesis at Harvard on the history of Eastern magicians and impersonators. David's huge children's book of magic tricks, How to Fool Your Parents, is in everywhere. And so that is in the printed edition, which is in the magazine. We didn't actually go through it, but it's in the magazine,
I guess
right?
there wasn't room in the digital version for the bio, but if you're on the website and you print out the newspaper version, you'll see both paragraphs.
Exactly.
Both bio and the note for how to solve the puzzle.
Sure. We'll just remind folks, if they are curious about getting the PDF from our website, you can go to digitmentors.group/NYTReadalong, and we'll put that link on the bottom again. If you go to our website, you can see New York Times Read Along, even from the homepage. Take it right from the beginning. So if you go to the homepage and click on New York Times Read Along, and then you scroll down, you'll see Deb Amlen Show, Columnist New York Times Games. Click on that. This is where the video plays if you want to watch there. Link to watch on other channels. And then this is the PDF of the crossword, so you can get it right from there. We won't be taking it down. You can always come back to it if you want to. But let's go ahead and bring back the puzzle, and let's get through it. Let's see what we can do with this.
Okay.
And we encourage folks to join us and give their suggestions.
Yeah, come if you've printed it out or you can see the puzzle, please, hop in the comments and help us out, because again, group solves are the most fun, in my opinion. So if, like I was saying, what I usually do is I will scan the clue list to find things that I call gimmies. It's a gimme. I know it. I know that it's right. The one that I started with was 40 across.
You said this was back when you don't start with one, right? You just
sometimes if I know the answer, for example, I might not automatic. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you just keep going. If I might not know one across, but if you click to one down and you look at that, the clue is 3 in Torino.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Torino lets you know that this is a language clue. They want to know what the number 3 is in Italian, and the answer is tre, T-R-E.
Put that in.
Yeah. So look at us. We're solving the New York Times crossword. The other thing is, if you look at 40 across, The clue is one step blank time, and it's 3 letters.
Okay.
So if you click on 40 across, I know it's hard. It's a big grid.
No, I'll get there. I just want to let folks know if they have a suggestion on a clue to let us know. So 40 across, we'll
Yeah.
scroll down here. One step. So you can click on that.
Right. So if you heard the phrase one step blank time, what's the first thing your brain tells you?
One step at a time.
How easy was that?
Very easy.
Do you even know where your brain pulled that out of? I mean, but it's interesting. The brain works in a really, really interesting word. And Mary got it. Thank you, Mary Curtis. So again, we're in. And if you let's see, let's do another one that is maybe a gimme for some people.
Okay.
I'm going to date myself by doing this, but the 50 across 50 is roll for Jay Silverheels.
I don't know who Jake Silverheels is.
I'm not surprised. I wasn't around when this show was on, but I did see it in reruns. And it may not be very politically correct now, but the role for Jay Silverheels was a Native American actor, and he played Tonto in The Lone Ranger. Thank you, Mary.
Naomi, and it's interesting. It times out on Naomi and Arlene also jumped on.
Good. See, you guys can do this.
You got people who know their stuff.
Here's another one, a little more, I would consider that almost a fill in the blank. But here's another one that's sort of a fill in the blank without having a blank. 56 across.
Okay.
Noblest
War. I know that one.
Now, sorry?
I know that one.
Hit me.
Niels.
There you go. He's a physicist, and he is somebody that you will see either with his first name or his last name in the crosswords quite a lot. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up. If you solve at least semi-regularly, you will start to see certain answers and clues again, not necessarily exactly as written, but you'll begin to realize, okay, I learned this from crosswords. I know this answer.
You see the repetition. And
right.
Mary and Arlene are right there with Niels. And I was going to point out that you have to know the spelling of Niels to make sure you get it right. It's
N-I-E.
But if you do, and that, you did the first crossword. You had that crossword behind your on the wall that was in the paper. Do you still construct?
Sorry. Do I still construct? Yes, but rarely. I have done a couple of puzzles. I'm actually working on one right now for a project that I can't really talk about, but I found out a long time ago that I prefer writing to puzzle making.
Interesting.
So I pretty much spend the majority of my time writing. Every once in a while, like Will Shorts dragged me out of retirement in 2019 because they were doing a bunch of celebrity crosswords. And I was lucky enough to work with Natasha Lyonne, the actress, on a crossword. So we did one together. And now I'm working on a couple of others. But it's fun. It's really a nice thing to learn how to do. And there are a lot of different, when I started, there weren't a lot of ways to learn, but now you can go on Facebook. There are some, crossword puzzle making groups. There are books on how to do it. Patrick Berry, who has A-Frame Games on the web, has a wonderful $10 worth every penny guide on how to make puzzles that you can download from his website.
So I'm going to ask our viewers. I know we only have you for a few more minutes, Deb.
Yeah.
I want to see who can get the answer for 59 down. Fill in the blank plan. Iconic hip hop group of the 1990s.
Oh, yeah.
And while you're thinking about that, it's a great time to remind folks that on Wednesday we're going to be I'm going to be moderating and producing a show with Walter Grayson and Tim Fielder. They're the author and illustrator for the graphic history of hip hop. I know that band is in the book. Charlie Moss, the associate editor of Spin magazine, is going to be the guest. We're going to be talking about the year in hip hop. We're talking about Spin's coverage of hip hop and history in general. But getting back to our clue, the blank plan, iconic hip hop group, and who got it? Yes, we have Arlene, Naomi, and Mary all coming through.
Awesome. You guys are quite a team.
So that's this might be a new taste for us here. We just gotta get the.
If you don't mind, I'd like to draw your attention to one that involves wordplay, which is why it'll show you one of the reasons I really love doing what I do. If you go to 30 down.
30 down is beauty spot.
Beauty spot. Now, when you see a question mark at the end of a clue, and here's one of the rules that will help you in your solving, it means that you can't read the clue as written. There's wordplay going on here. So on the surface, most people would think of a beauty spot as like a mole or something that would be, on your face. And Naomi did guess mole, which is a great guess.
That was my first guess.
Yeah, we have 2 letters filled in already, O and N. Yeah. So what else could a beauty spot mean? That's the question that I keep bringing up. What else could this mean?
I got it.
A spot, I'm sure you do. A spot isn't necessarily, a beauty spot is not necessarily something on your face, but it could be a place you go.
Yeah.
A spot where you go for beauty care. And the answer is salon.
Salon. Exactly.
Look at you guys.
Now, I like Naomi's thinking vacay. It's definitely we want to do that, but salon is what ends with an O-N.
Right.
That's hot.
Yeah. The puzzles are tough, but they're fair. There's always a good reason why the answer is what it is. Another one, 127 across.
Jumping up.
Okay. 127 across. 127.
127.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it.
No, Mary, you ain't bad at this at all. You really are. And if you can do this, you can do probably the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday puzzles. So yeah, that's really
land in the sea.
On the back. Okay, land in the sea. Some people I'll tell you the way I responded to this. My first thought was that the land was a verb, like to land in the sea, and that the answer would be like splash, like a splashdown.
Yeah.
We have 4 letters.
Yeah.
I have nothing there yet. So here we go again with what else could this mean? The land in the sea, in this clue, is not a verb, it's a noun. We're talking about real, actual topological land. And John's got it.
My first thought, before seeing the layer, I'm thinking island.
Right. But then you
when
have,
I saw the 4.
Yeah. Now, there are puzzles where you might run into something where the answer is definitely what you think it is, but there's not enough squares. That's what we call, sometimes you'll run into something called a rebus element. And in crosswords, a rebus is when you need to write more than one letter in a square. Now, in print, you would just write very small. Digitally, if you scroll up, now, well, did you open the rebus box?
I clicked on rebus.
Yes. That answer itself is not a rebus. But if you can see, if you click on the rebus button at the top, can you just scroll up and show people where that is?
Yeah.
Rebus right there. If you click on that, it opens up a box with a yellow outline, and you can type more than one letter, and then you just hit return and it closes back up. So if this wouldn't be correct, but if you take out the E and write AND in there.
Okay.
Now hit return.
Yeah.
See, it shows you how to make a longer word that will fit in the thing. And there are puzzles that do involve that. Now, today that answer would be incorrect. It would be isle. ISLE.
I wanted to look. I saw a clue that I just felt we had to answer, but now I can't find it. It's Bronx Cheer.
Oh,
where we saw that?
Can you remember which that is?
There we go. 33.
Oh, 33 across.
33 across. Bronx Cheer.
Okay. Now, I come from the Bronx. I grew up in the Bronx. And to me, the Bronx Cheer is something completely different.
Exactly.
But in this puzzle, and I'm going to spoil something. So if you don't want it spoiled, stick your fingers in your ears and go la, 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 la for just a second. This is a rebus puzzle. We haven't run into, I've deliberately avoided the rebuses so far, but you happen to bring it up. So one of the ways I know that there is a rebus element in the puzzle is if I try to fill in almost everything I can, but I'm not getting very far. In other words, even after I've been solved, because I'm a pretty quick solver at this point, but if I've been working on it and I still don't have a lot in the grid, and I find myself cursing at the puzzle, I know it's probably a rebus. So 33 across, the Bronx Cheer happens to be a rebus element. From the downs, I was able to get skipping the first square. I had, starting with the second square, NKEES.
For 34 down?
No, you mean for the 33 across. Go to the second square and just type in NKEES. What does that look like to you?
Well, you know what? You have to realize that I'm a huge Yankees fan, and it's leaning toward Yankees, but no. What I mean?
Well,
not go Yankees. I was thinking go Yankees.
Well, wait. It is in fact go Yankees, but how are we going to fit that all in there, Neil?
Okay, so you mentioned rebus square. So if I click on rebus and I type go, I should go Y.
Yeah. No, fill in. So it says go Yankees.
With an A. Okay, I can spell.
Goya.
Yeah, which is Goya. Yeah, I messed up.
That's right.
Let's see.
Who do you know? And I'm not talking about the company. I'm talking about a person. Who do you know named Goya?
It's an artist, right?
That's right. So you've now found one of the paintings in the puzzle. You found a Goya.
Okay.
In the Go Yankees thing.
But then what letter goes in that first spot? Or is it that any of those letters can work with the down?
Yes.
The 12 down?
Well, here's what happens, which is interesting. If you fill in 12 down, which is where which crosses that first square at 33 across, the answer is going to be the CW, which is a television channel.
Okay.
So what would normally be accepted would be something like W/Goya or Goya/W, or even just the first letters, which I don't like to do because I can't remember what I was supposed to write. So at 12 down, the answer is the CW. At 33 across, you would probably have written in WNKEES. But
Wow.
the answer is not WNKEES. I told you this was a little complex.
Yeah.
The answer is Goya. The W that you've written in there is is one of the pieces of evidence that the thief has left for you. So you're going to write Goya, go Yankees.
Yeah.
But the Goya, we're going to, or you can write W, and that W is part of the message from top to bottom that you have to fill in.
Wow.
So I used for this, I will confess, for this puzzle, I had a pad of paper and a pen next to me to write down those letters, because there was no way I was going to remember this.
And Dr. Tachi is putting in what I keep repeating. Wow. Like this is blowing my mind.
Well,
I never realized that I just assumed it's box and there's a one letter that goes there. I mean, you're right, Bronx Cheer. I'm thinking, folks who watch the show know I'm a huge Yankee fan. I actually have a ticker ready to go when we have guests who lean a different way. I just kind of sneak in my little Go Yankees sticker to bother them. But it never would have occurred to me that could have been the small in that section.
Yeah. Well, that's the rebus part of it. Now, normally the rebuses will be part of a theme and that's it. This puzzle in particular happens to have a lot more layers than that. And that's what I was saying before when I said it can be funny, it can be multi-layered, crossword puzzles are really interesting. And they're a lot of fun, not to show how smart you are, but to other people, but to show yourself how smart you are.
Dr. Tachi said this is fascinating. John Lee said I had no idea.
Yeah.
So we're really opening up a huge. One thing to play with the crossword together, but we're actually like sharing some really interesting insights and knowledge for folks.
Yeah. And it's fun. So now yes, Mary asks, would folks get a warning before that all is not what it seems? Yeah. Sometimes part of what we ask is if there's a rebus, you need to figure that out. And I said before that one of the ways I know that there's a rebus in the puzzle is if I've been working on it for a while, I haven't been able to fill a lot in because the answers that I think I know don't fit, and I find myself cursing at the puzzle. If I'm using expletives, it's probably a rebus. Now I say that jokingly, but it is frustrating. The way you know about it today is because it's a Sunday puzzle and there's a note that comes with it. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, not because it's a Sunday puzzle. There is a note that comes with it. And I think we read that before. 2 paintings have been, 10 paintings have been stolen by a master thief to solve this caper, and it goes on along. It sounds complicated when you do it, but when you start solving, and this particularly when you finish the puzzle, it will start to make a lot more sense. So, for example, what you need to know about this is you may write in something in the downs, and it's going to make your connecting across look weird, but that's one of the letters you have to take out of the puzzle and read from top to bottom to get a special message. At the same time, because this is a complex puzzle, that letter that you take out is also can be a rebus. We call this a bidirectional rebus, meaning that it goes both ways. There's two answers. In some rebuses, it works both ways for the same rebus, and in others, bidirectionally, there are two different answers, but there's a reason that there were two different answers. So yes, you would normally get some sort of an answer for a puzzle like this. Normally, for regular rebuses, there's no real warning because that's part of the fun. That's what you have to figure out and solve.
Well, and so when you're doing it on paper, obviously you don't have that facility of clicking a button and highlighting that.
Well, you would see the note on the print version.
Okay.
It's the digital version that sometimes people miss the note because it's not. I don't know. It's sometimes people just don't read those things. They just start solving, and then they get angry because they don't understand why we didn't warn them. And the thing is, we do warn them, and for the times we don't warn them, it's because we want you to figure that out.
And are there rebuses in every puzzle?
I'm sorry
to interrupt. Are there rebuses in every puzzle, or
no?
just
In fact,
occasionally?
most of the rebuses tend to be on Thursdays because I don't want to say that because now Will and Joel Faliana will put them on other days. But most of them are usually Thursdays or possibly on a Sunday.
Okay.
So, and Thursdays are known as the tricky day of the week because usually there's some evil twist like this.
This was incredibly interesting. I know that we are at 10:30 and we need to wrap up. Thank you for being so generous with your time today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was a lot of fun.
It was incredible to talk about the crossword and kind of the background, how they're constructed, to look at the Sunday puzzle together. Again, you can download the PDF from our website if folks are interested. Just thank you so much for giving us your time this morning and sharing just some of the insights from 5,000 columns you've written for the Times. It's just great.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to remind everybody, if you thought this was fun or you'd like to learn more, there is a free How to Solve the New York Times Crossword Guide, which talks about all these different kinds of clues and gives you little minis to work on so that you can test your expertise. It talks about how to have themes. It talks about how to approach the puzzle. And I think people find it very helpful when they first get started solving.
Absolutely. And we'll share that link for folks to that article. I think people will really enjoy it. For folks who are watching, Mary says, thank you.
Thank
and I
you.
think she
Thank you
speaks
for joining.
for all of us. This was a great show. Again, join us next week. Our last show of 2024 will feature Mike Connors, the production supervisor at College Point, and that's going to be an incredible show as well. We have Dr. Tati saying this was great. Thank you both. And Naomi, after my meditation class, I'll work on it. Fun
Yay!
show. Thank you again, and we'll put that crossword back up for folks, just for folks to see what we were doing toward the end. And thank you again. We'll say bye to everyone, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you guys all for joining us, and happy solving.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.